the soft side of Hollywood's toughest star. Jason Momoa, the towering, muscle-bound warrior we know from Aquaman and Game of Thrones, has spent years playing characters that exude power, dominance, and strength. Whether he's wielding a trident under the ocean or commanding armies in a fantasy kingdom, he's always been the definition of toughness. But real life? That's a whole different story. Because behind all the battle scenes and heroic stunts, Jason Momoa is just a dad. And like every dad, he has one great weakness: watching his daughter grow up. And recently, that weakness hit him hard. In a heartwarming yet heartbreaking moment caught on camera, Jason was left speechless and in tears after seeing his daughter Lola go through an unexpected transformation. It wasn't just about her growing up. It was about realizing that she was becoming her own person. For a guy who can lift boulders and fight on-screen monsters, this was one challenge he wasn't quite ready for. Lola Momoa was born on a warm summer day in July of 2007 to Jason and his then-wife, actress Lisa Bonet. From the moment she arrived, Jason was completely in love with his little girl. He didn't just want to be a dad. He wanted to be the best dad possible. But let's be real, fatherhood doesn't come with an instruction manual. Jason, being the adventurous spirit that he is, decided to raise his daughter the only way he knew how, with love, excitement, and a whole lot of outdoor adventures. Unlike most Hollywood kids who grow up in the glitz and glam of red carpets and celebrity parties, Lola's childhood looked more like something out of a storybook wilderness tale. Instead of expensive designer clothes and flashy events, her days were spent climbing trees, surfing waves, and playing the guitar with her dad. She wasn't just a kid growing up in a famous family, she was a wild child, full of life, creativity, and energy. Jason and Lisa made a conscious decision to keep their children grounded, even though they lived in a world full of flashing cameras and screaming fans. Their home in Topanga Canyon was more of a rustic retreat than a Hollywood mansion. There were no paparazzi, no luxury shopping sprees, just nature, family, and a whole lot of love. Jason would often post glimpses of their life together on social media, sharing moments of father-daughter rock climbing, horseback riding, and playing in the ocean. He wasn't just a father, he was a protector, a playmate, and a teacher, shaping his daughter's childhood in a way that was as far from Hollywood as possible. Most kids grow up watching their parents go to work. But Lola, she grew up on movie sets, watching her dad transform into different characters. By the time she was 5 years old, she was already comfortable on set, surrounded by cameras, actors, and film crews. And the coolest part? She wasn't even fazed by it. When Jason was filming Game of Thrones as the fierce Khal Drogo, little Lola would run around set, completely unfazed by his terrifying warrior look. Imagine a tiny little girl giggling while her dad, covered in war paint and fake blood, is preparing for a brutal battle scene. That was just another day for Lola. Despite growing up in the entertainment industry, Jason and Lisa worked hard to shield their kids from the darker side of fame. While other celebrity kids were constantly in the spotlight, Lola and her younger brother, Nakoa Wolf, were raised in an environment where childhood actually felt like childhood. Jason's parenting philosophy was all about adventure and self-discovery. He wanted his daughter to grow up strong, confident, and full of life. He wasn't the type of dad to sit on the sidelines. He was always in the action, teaching her how to surf, skateboard, and even play the guitar. By the time Lola was 8 years old, she had already started jamming out with her dad, joining him in impromptu music sessions. Jason was proud of her creative spirit, but never pushed her toward entertainment. He always said, "I want her to find her own path." As Lola entered her preteen years, Jason began noticing subtle shifts. She was no longer just his little adventure buddy. She was growing up. By the time she turned 11, something had changed. She was no longer the shy girl hiding behind her father at public events. At the Aquaman premiere, she stood confidently beside him, engaging with reporters and showing a poised maturity that even surprised Jason. And then, the real challenge began. As any parent will tell you, the teenage years are a whole new level of parenting. Jason wasn't just dealing with scraped knees and bedtime stories anymore. He was entering a world of school drama, independence, and the inevitable topic of dating. Jason, being the protective father that he is, wasn't quite ready for it. In interviews, he would often joke about never letting Lola date, but deep down, everyone knew that behind the laughs, he was struggling with the reality of watching his little girl grow up. To keep their bond strong despite his demanding film schedule, Jason came up with creative ways to stay connected. When he was filming overseas, they had virtual movie nights, syncing up the same film and video chatting during it. It wasn't the same as being together, but it was Jason's way of saying, "No matter where I am, I'm still here." Then, in the year 2020, something unexpected happened. The world shut down. For the first time in years, Jason wasn't constantly traveling for work. Instead, he was home. Really home. And while the world was dealing with uncertainty, Jason found himself grateful for something: uninterrupted time with his kids. He later called it an unexpected gift, a rare period where he got to slow down and just be a dad. But as much as he treasured those moments, it also meant he had a front row seat to just how fast Lola was changing. And that realization? It hit him like a ton of bricks. By the time Lola turned 13, Jason could no longer deny it. His little girl wasn't so little anymore. She was becoming a young woman, forming her own opinions, making her own decisions, and stepping into the world with confidence. And for Jason, that was both beautiful and terrifying. Like any loving father, Jason wanted to protect his daughter from everything. But Lola, she was starting to show that she didn't need her dad in the same way she once did. She had her own mind, her own passions, and her own way of looking at the world. And Jason? He had no idea how to handle it. As a teenager, Lola became more independent. She started exploring her multi-ethnic heritage, embracing both her Hawaiian roots from Jason's side and her African-American and Jewish heritage from her mother, Lisa Bonet. This journey wasn't just about family history. It was about identity. At home, Jason encouraged this self-exploration, teaching her about Hawaiian traditions and taking her to cultural events and ceremonies. When she expressed interest in learning the hula, Jason made sure she had the best teachers. He understood that knowing where you come from helps you know where you're going. But her growth didn't stop at culture. It extended into activism and education. At just 14 years old, Lola delivered a powerful speech at a United Nations Youth Forum about ocean pollution. She wasn't just learning about the environment. She was actively fighting for it. She had grown up seeing her dad advocate for protecting the oceans, and now she was standing up and speaking for her own generation. Jason was incredibly proud, but also a little stunned. She wasn't just his daughter anymore. She was a leader. And that's when the first cracks in his tough guy armor started to show. By the time Lola turned 15, Jason started to feel something every dad dreads: the loss of control. For years, he had been the one in charge, the one keeping her safe, the one guiding her through the world. But suddenly, she was making decisions without him. And then came the ultimate test for any father: dating. Now, Jason had joked for years about how he would never let his daughter date. In interviews, he'd play up his tough guy persona, saying things like, "I pity the first guy who comes to my house." But here's the thing. It wasn't a joke anymore. During a candid interview on The Kelly Clarkson Show, Jason revealed that when a young man came to their house for the first time, he felt something he wasn't prepared for: pure, unfiltered panic. He confessed that he had to physically remind himself to breathe. His wife had to step in and tell him to relax. And in that moment, Jason Momoa, the warrior, the superhero, the man who has battled monsters and conquered kingdoms, realized that he had lost the fight against time. Lola was growing up, whether he was ready or not. The moment that truly shattered Jason came in late 2023. It was supposed to be just another family gathering. Jason had no idea that this would be the night when reality would hit him like a tidal wave. As everyone was chatting, laughing, and getting ready for a special event, Lola appeared at the top of the stairs. She had grown taller, more confident. She carried herself with grace and elegance, radiating an energy that was entirely her own. And Jason? He froze. Footage captured by family members shows his expression shifting from casual conversation to pure, stunned silence. His eyes filled with tears, his mouth slightly open, as if trying to speak but unable to find the words. It wasn't just that she had grown up. It was how she had grown up. She wasn't just standing there as his daughter. She was standing there as her own person. A young woman who didn't need him in the same way she once did. And for Jason, that realization was devastating. In an interview later, he reflected on that moment, saying, "It wasn't just how she looked. It was hearing her speak about climate policy with more articulation than most adults. It was watching her handle difficult conversations with grace. It was realizing she doesn't need me in all the ways she once did, and feeling both immensely proud and terrified by that." At that moment, he realized that fatherhood isn't just about holding on, it's about learning to let go. A few weeks later, for Lola's 16th birthday, Jason posted a deeply emotional message on social media. Instead of the usual celebrity parent tribute, Jason's post was raw, vulnerable, and filled with honesty. He didn't try to be poetic. He didn't try to be funny. He simply wrote, "The greatest challenge of my life hasn't been climbing mountains or performing my own stunts. It's been learning to stand steady while watching you soar. I'm not always good at it. Sometimes I hold too tight, but I promise to keep trying to get it right." The post immediately went viral, with thousands of parents flooding the comments, sharing their own experiences of watching their kids grow up. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't just Jason's story, it was every parent's story. The story of watching your child step into their own, feeling pride and heartbreak at the same time. The story of realizing that no matter how much you love them, you can't stop time. Jason Momoa is a lot of things. A Hollywood icon, a warrior, a king of Atlantis, a man who can crush a watermelon with his bare hands. But at the end of the day, he's just a dad who loves his daughter more than anything in the world. A dad who wants to protect her, even when she doesn't need protection. A dad who is still learning how to let go. And if Aquaman can cry about his daughter growing up, then let's be real. The rest of us don't stand a chance. A story every parent can relate to. This story isn't just about Jason Momoa. It's about every parent who has ever looked at their child and thought, "Where did the time go?" It's about that moment when you realize that the little hands that once reached for yours don't need you to hold them anymore. And while it's heartbreaking, it's also beautiful. Because in the end, watching your child grow isn't about losing them. It's about watching them become who they were always meant to be. And that's the greatest honor a parent can have. What's next for Jason and Lola? Jason has accepted that his role as a father is changing. Instead of holding on, he's learning to stand beside Lola as she forges her own path. And one thing is for sure, no matter how much she grows, Jason will always be her biggest fan. And maybe, just maybe, he'll survive this whole dating thing after all. But let's be honest, probably not. Would you like more celebrity parenting stories? If you loved this deep dive into Jason Momoa's emotional fatherhood journey, subscribe for more. Because Hollywood isn't just about the glitz and glam. It's about the real people behind the fame. And sometimes, even superheroes have to cry.